All right, everybody. My Splinterlands videos about the different teams has been getting a good amount of views. Thank you to a lot of new subscribers. My channel is growing, but this is still a very small channel. So if you're watching this, there's a good chance that you're getting a lot of info about different NFT projects and different DeFi farms that not a lot of people know about. The ones I would say to take a look at if you're new to my channel are like the Waxel one and some of my Wax videos, and maybe take a look at Cub Finance if you're on Binance Smart Chain. But if not, just keep watching the Splinterlands content. I love my Splinterlands players out there. I love that the game is growing. I love that just everything about it is really finally reaching the world that it is time to play to earn and then play to give, which is why I give away 1,000 DEC on the Hive chain to somebody who watches one of these videos. Now, if you don't know how to get into that, you just need to come over to the Hive post. I always put the Hive post in the description of the YouTube video. If you're a Splinterlands player, you have a Hive account, so you should be able to leave a comment over here, and then you just leave a comment. It doesn't have to be saying my video is good. It doesn't have to be say anything in particular, but it has to be like, hey, I watched the video. Good job. It was in it. You made a mistake. You did something. As long as it somewhat lets me know that you check my video out, you'll be on the wheel. So here's the wheel this week, and this is a pretty good chance at 1,000 DEC, which last time I looked at the price was still sitting at around $5 for that. So that's going to be kind of interesting, and we're going to get Clash with Herds. Or Clash with Herds. You're going to win. That's a new name to me. I'm seeing a lot of new names in my giveaways. So I didn't do this on video last time, and I think it's because I was too excited to get into everything else. But we'll go ahead and go here, and we'll go to my DEC collection here. We'll transfer to a player, and we'll send off 1,000 DEC. As you can see, I'm sitting on 68,000 DEC right now, which is not a huge amount, but it's a decent amount considering most of my our DEC is out in the Cub Finance DEC pool. That's one of the reasons why I said you should check out Cub Finance. They're the one place where you can put DEC in a DeFi pool. So we'll go to my balance history really quick. And as you can see, the transfer went out. So congratulations once again. You should be seeing that. And I'll tag you in the Hive post just to let you know you won so you can make sure. So today, as you can see, I went ahead and played with them because something I'm going to do that I didn't do in the past. So I'm going to show you a couple battles with the team that I'm going to be reviewing today. Now, I'm in Champion League, so I'm going to be showing you these cards at max or close to max level. And as you can see, I won 3 games and lost 1. That wasn't bad considering I was trying to force myself to use Earth. And when you're forcing yourself to try to use one team in this game, sometimes you're going to lose because teams fit rule sets as well as have their own strengths, which is something I haven't talked about enough in the post. And I'm going to try to start mixing that in a little bit. And at the end, I might do a review on the 2 teams that I've already covered where I didn't tell you the rule sets that they're really good for. So let's go ahead and get over here to the market. Again, we won't look at the alpha cards because those are too expensive. And we'll start with the the Earth team. I think of them as Life Team because they are the healing team and the team with a lot of HP buffs for the most part. But they are the Earth team, and they have some of the best summoners in the game who do cost some of the most money. As you can see, there is no summoner here that is very cheap except for the brand new one, and that's because he has one of the worst abilities at -2 armor, because if you're not playing a team with a lot of characters with armor, it doesn't matter. Though in some formats, he's very cool because someone might be using a 2 armor buff in, say, an Earthquake mode, and he'll take that armor away. He's not a bad summoner to have if this is all you can afford, because he will allow you to access some really good cards, and they have some of the best cards in the game. Now, the Prince was literally king of Splinterlands until Jotun came along. Jotun was the first one to dethrone him, and then once the other 7 card summoners came out, the few of them started to compete and fight with him, but he is still one of the most powerful summoners in the game. To be able to make your ranged cards attack harder, faster, and all your monsters more life is just a super good card for 5 mana, especially because there's a lot of higher mana matches now. He used to be harder to use when he was originally introduced because we didn't have 30 and 40 and 50 mana matches. We actually have those now and a 99 mana match, so he's much more usable in those. But then the 7 cost summoners came along to make him a little bit weaker. weaker, but he is spectacular. If you have him or rent him, he will help you win a lot of matches. Obviously, with him, you're looking to play ranged monsters behind good tanks. That's the basis of how you would go ahead and use them. The next summoner that's really the king of king, and that's why there's only 21 for sale right now, that's the Lama. So the Sacred Lama Mage is just ridiculous because Last Stand is a very, very powerful ability, and to be able to give that to any card on the team, no matter what, creates some crazy things. And then there's the most frustrating thing you'll ever run into in the game, and that's the Lama Cube combo in a 13 mana match. Because really what you do is you get at the end a monster that can heal itself, with the Llama being able to remove any debuffs that are put on it, so you can't stop that monster from getting the self-heal on it or from even being healed in that front position. So it creates an amazingly difficult time for you to really get rid of that front target monster if you're fighting them. And they have some really, really powerful monsters that he can put Last Stand on. And I'm going to show you, I don't even have one of them leveled up because he was super, super expensive this entire time. It's been really frustrating. Xander, we don't really need to talk about much at this point. I wouldn't really invest in him. You don't really need the 2-cost summoner unless you're being really, really competitive at the top leagues or really, really competitive in tournaments. In that case, if you're buying them because you're going to want to do that, then I could see picking him up, but otherwise you don't really need him. Mylor is really expensive because in the lower leagues, I'd say bronze and silver, he's one of the best summoners. There is something to be said for giving your entire team thorns and being able to deal that 2 damage back in the beginning of the game when some monsters only do 1 damage on their attacks is just really, really powerful. I can't understate that. Now, he can be countered, and if people know that Myler's really strong, then they play a lot of mages, they play a lot of ranged, and then his ability is not very good. But he does have modes where he'll be dominant in bronze and silver. That's because there's melee mayhem, where all melee monsters can attack from any position, where you're going to see a lot. There's also the mode that only allows you to use melee monsters. So he will absolutely dominate those matches, even all the way up through gold and up in the upper leagues. He is very competitive in those ones. This is why he has already outpaced the beta summoner Liana, who is a really good summoner as well, because +1 HP to a team that uses heals is really solid because it's a +1 HP that'll help counteract any other cards. And there's some combos you can do to make her and Prince end up giving up 2 or 3 HP to your entire team, and that gets really ridiculous when you're talking about cards with really high HPs getting really, really big heals from some of the best healers in the game that are on the Earth team, and we'll be talking about them pretty soon. Now, where you're going to go here, you're going to have to decide. Obviously, if you're on a budget, you're going to be over here, and he's really key in just, allowing you to compete and allowing you to play. So in bronze and silver, Earth is probably the best team in around the 25 to 35 range. I would say they can even beat out Zaku teams at that point sometimes, because you can just put enough big monsters on the board with healing and enough healing to really counteract them. Zaku, it's going to be a fight, but if Zaku's not on the board, you're definitely looking at this team being one of the strongest ones. So now let's go ahead and get into looking at the monsters. So we're going to start off with the tanks. So anybody who doesn't know, tank would be the first position card that you put on the board, and they're going to be melee monsters typically, or they're going to be very high HP non-melee monsters. Now, some of the best tanks in the game are legendary cards in the neutral set, like Lord A, but he's really, really expensive, so I'm not thinking you guys are really going to have him. I'm also kind of focusing this on cards that players can purchase if possible, but prices are continuing to go very, very high. So we will talk about the main tanks that make the team good if you want to have them, and the kind of levels that you need to have them at. Now, the first one I'll talk about is the Flesh Golem. Flesh Golem is their common monster that you see selling here for $17. That's pretty expensive for a common monster, right? That's because he is one of the best tanks in the game. At in bronze, if you get him to level 3, which would require 5 cards, which is still a pretty good investment, he gets a self-heal. Once he has that self-heal and 10 HP, he is a very hard guy to kill when you put a healer behind him. Then if you use him with a Maelor, he has thorns and healing, and it just gets kind of over the top. Or even with an HP boost, that puts him up to 11. It is pretty wild. In the upper leagues, you need to get to him to at least level 7. That is where I have the card, and he can start to be competitive. If you're competing at the highest level, you need him at level 10 for that extra attack and HP, but also you could get away maybe with him at level 9, where the only thing he's missing is 1 HP. Given 1 HP can make the difference in a certain match, but certainly I've been able to use him at level 7 and still be competitive in the Diamond League when I put him on the board. But there are some other tanks that this is not the only one that you can use. So because the Untamed set, you're looking at the bronze area, one of the better tanks in the game is going to be the Unicorn Mustang. And the basic idea with this one is because it's so strong right out of the gate. Level 1 with no upgrades at all, you're at 3 attack, 4 speed, 10 HP. Those are all very strong numbers. Same thing, you don't only need if you get a 5 and push him up a level, then you're sitting there at 11 HP, and he doesn't cost near as much as the other cards. What was he anyways? There's just so many cards in the set. Sorry, everybody. So he's like a couple dollars. So for under $10, you can get him to level 2. He'll have 11 HP, 3 attack, and 4 speed. The 3 attack is really big because in the bronze area, that's a lot of attack for a monster that has that kind of speed and that kind of life. You do see Rexy. Rexy is an interesting card, but it has so low HP. Oh, and the other thing is he has Void. So Void protects you from the mages. And in the low levels, that's going to eliminate a lot of monsters that only do 1. So, you could see like the Wood Nymph and the Princess, they only do 1 mana attack. This guy only does 1 mana down here at level 1. So he would void out almost any low-level mana attacker, so only ranged monsters can hit him. So this is one of the interesting cards. Another one that doesn't get maybe enough credit for how good it can be is the Failed Summoner, but this only really works if you use cards that are going to buff his HP, and that's more in the upper leagues. So as you can see, you need a lot of HP to use him, but once you get him up here to where he has 7 or 8 HPs, if you're going to play up in the upper divisions, he is a very, very useful card. I actually have him sitting here at level 9, which is kind of interesting. I left him at the 10 HP, but I didn't get the Strengthen skill where he would actually boost the whole team's life even more. And at this point, it would cost me $100 to go ahead and make that jump. I still might do it just because it's nice to have all the cards maxed out in a set, and I don't. That's all I'm missing is a few commons and Untamed. But we'll have to see if. Oh yeah, I can take the summoners off the board. That'll clean this up. So the other tanks that I'm going to tell you that you're going to want to have on the team for useful events are you can use the Harvester. Even though he seems like he might be usable, he's really pigeonholed into kind of a weird spot with this 5 mana cost because he can't be the tank for them in a Little League game. So he doesn't really have a spot that he would fix. So this is one of the few cards in the game I don't really like unless you're playing like a 20-ish mana. Melee monsters can attack from everywhere and you're going to want to use him. You're going to want for Little League to have a Biceratops leveled up to whatever the highest level is of the league that you're in. You'll see that if you're playing him in silver, he never gets thorns in silver or bronze, so he's not as useful, but he can get 3 attack, which is a pretty solid tank in silver. And then when you play him in the upper leagues, he gets thorns and he gets some extra HP and even an extra attack. So he's a strong card for that Little League game. Now, let's see. We talked about Flesh Golem. This one, I wouldn't call him a tank. You can rent him because if you can find a cheap rental on him, he's a good card to have for those 99 mana matches. You want to have the 12s, and he would be your second place position, so he'd be a good tank that would come up behind the main tank. The same thing with Minotaur Warlord. At 8 mana, I just haven't used him that much because he's not that much better than a leveled up Flesh Golem or a leveled up Unicorn. So even though I have this card and I only have it at level 3, I don't end up playing it that often because it just doesn't end up usually being the best option in my opinion. Now we're going to go ahead and try to get into a little bit of the different kind of attackers in the back row that you can aim to do. Now there's two kind of attack modes that you can go with life. You can go for a magic attack team or a ranged attack team or a combo. They do have a sniper play, which is kind of interesting if you want to play it, but it requires you to have the Spirit of the Forest leveled up pretty well, which would be hard to do at this time. But you can see that she's a sniper with 2 and 6 speed, and that's pretty cool. Now, she doesn't get really good until she becomes a healer. Once she becomes a healer here at level 2, then it's a much better card because she is also a healer. And honestly, for 7 cost, 2 sniper damage in the back row, unless you're playing very high mana, that's just not worth playing. So I wouldn't get this card unless you're going to get it and rent it at least level 2 so it can be a healer, because otherwise you can't pay 7 mana to do that, because look what you could do for 7 mana with this team. You could just play a wood nymph that has a healing, and you can do a sniper child of the forest. That's 7 mana, 2 cards, so now you have 2 monsters on the board. Yes, they have less HP, but they're going to be kind of just efficient as that other card, and if you level them up to their higher levels, which you can do, then if you're sitting here at level 5, now it heals, and what does it end up gaining here? Oh, the 1 HP. So it gets faster, so it heals sooner in the turn, and then eventually it gets that extra HP. And then if this is one of the best cards in the game, if you can get it, you definitely want to get it at least at level 6, so it has the strengthen ability. And then the next area to aim for would be to get the extra magic attack. That's one of the things that I haven't talked about as much. When you're leveling your cards, you want to look at what they're going to get for that next level and choose where to invest for that, because obviously this is a really good level to get him because it gets him his heal. But is this a really good level to get him? Level 4, he loses an HP and gains an attack. Well, that's something you'll have to decide. But obviously, if you could skip straight to here where he has that same 10 HP, you're going to be better off. And that's one of the things that you have to decide. Is the attack worth losing that extra HP in those cases? Or do you want to gain that HP back? It's a very interesting thing that you have to pay attention to in the leveling of your cards. Is what stats are they going to get, and where can I get them to, and what kind of investment does it take me to get them to that really good level. Now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the good attackers in the game. Now they have some very excellent cards that are around the 5 to 6 cost that can attack from the back row, and they all hit the front position. So you have Beatrix. She's a strong card who's a little bit cheaper because she's a newer card, at least when you talk about the fact that she's an epic card. So for an epic card, that's pretty good. Then you've got the Mushroom Seer. He's a really cool card because he has a silence. And the one thing is, if you're using a silence with the unicorn, now any mage that even had 2, you silence them down to 1, and now a lot of them can't do any damage. Then you also have the Javelin Spear Thrower that starts off with a 2 damage at low level. Anything that starts off with 2 low is really, really good. Now, these cards can combine with, so let me show you some other ones that are pretty good to look at. Now, this one, the Barking Spider, is actually better than people take it for, because what you can use him for is your first position behind your tank. That is a ranged monster that would get hit by snipers, and he ends up with a lot of HP for only 4 cost. He starts off as well, that's my level 8. I'm sorry, this is where you can get him eventually. Or that's just showing a level 8 for sale, I'm sorry. So he starts off with just 1 attack and 2, but if you go to his stat lines, if you get him up here to level 5 to compete in silver, he'll have 2 attack, a 3 speed, and 6 HP. That's a monster that's going to take a few sniper hits to kill, hit for 2, and do it in decent speed. So he's more usable than people think he is, because he's a good combo to put in front of, say, somebody like a Micah, who's going to only have 5 HP, so less HP, but it has that big 4 attack early on, and even 5 attack if you level him up a little bit. The other big card that you can look into getting here to be sniper target is this one here. So the Center Mage is a really, really good anti-sniper card to put in that first sniper position. And when I show you some of the battles, I will go ahead and get into the positioning of the cards. But the Centaurus Mage has Return Fire. And in the upper levels, you combine her with the priestess and you get the triage heals that'll heal her, and she can end up killing a lot of things. Now, the princess is not usable in the game unless she has her heal. Other than if you have 2 mana left and you want a magic attacker who's attacking the front row for some reason, then you can go ahead and put her on the board. But otherwise, I wouldn't even bother with this card unless you have it at level 4 and you get the heal. If you get it to max level, you really need to go ahead and get it here, because once this card can heal both the front row monster and one of the back row monsters, you're going to see some of the crazy combos that you can do on this team as far as making sure that monsters do not die very quickly. Now, going back to the game, the more economical healer to get, because you don't have to level it up as high, and it was a rewards card that was given to us for free. I've already shown her, but I'll just touch base on this card really quick, is the Wood Nymph, because even at level 1, the Wood Nymph gets a heal. This means you can heal your tank at level 1 on the Earth team with this card right now, and that is a huge advantage because not that many teams have level 1 healers. Now, you do want to level this card up until it gets that extra HP, just to help it not die so quick. After that, you don't need to push it any higher than level 3. You obviously, if you're competing, but I mean, there's not that much difference here. If you spend a whole bunch of money to get it to 25 cards, it only goes up 1 HP and 1 speed. And a healer at 2 speed isn't terrible, but you could spend a little bit more money and get it to the 3 speed. The thing is, you want your healer to heal after the opponent's had a few monsters attack your tank, but not before your tank dies, because if your card goes too late in the turn, you're going to be pretty disappointed when your card is just dead and your healer has no one to heal. Now, the guy I haven't talked about too much, Kron the Undying, he is a very, very awesome card. He combos with the Lama to be able to last stand early on in the game, and then he has last stand on his own when he gets to these higher levels. Now, if you're competing in the bottom, you can probably get a rental on a level 1 or a level 3, and he'll be a good card. He'll do 3 magic damage no matter what, and he really helps in the high mana magic matches. If you're playing at the high levels, you can get him at level 4 or level 3, and he picks up last stand. Then he doesn't need the Lama to give him last stand. But this card, I'll show you, it's pretty ridiculous what he turns into with last stand when he's a high level monster. The other cards that are pretty important to look at are this one in a higher mana match can be played. He's magic for 2 at low levels with a rust that removes armor. So that can be, like I said, though, it's an interesting combo. They can be really, really anti-armor. So if you see like there's a good chance the other opponent might play armor, then you can play this card, which is helpful. Having a Stone Splitter Orc on your team is not a bad idea for melee Mayhem or Super Sneak, or really those 2 modes, because he's a fast, hard-hitting attacker at higher levels, and he's a very hard amount hitter at these level 1s because he has 3 attack. He's not a good frontline tank, though, in most matches, because he doesn't have high HP, and mages will kill him very fast. So in a no mages game, you could theoretically try to play him as your tank, but you're still better off going with a flesh golem or going with a unicorn in my book most of the time. Some of the cards that deserve a little bit of a mention, the sniper mode that they can play is with Child of the Forest, with Spirit of the Forest, and then you add in the neutral cards, which I don't always do this right away, but there is a sniper. I really wish we could show them by abilities on this screen. Oh, and one of the things I was going to do, sorry, I should have done this sooner. Let's zoom in a little bit. Sorry about that, guys. So there is the Mantitoid, I think. I forget the name. Right here. Yeah, Mantitoid. He is a sniper with 2 attack right away. So you combo in this sniper with 3 of them. Then you have 3 snipers that can do a sniper team. So that's really one of the ways that they can do that. I don't think there's any other snipers that are there. Now, the cube is a card I'm going to mention with this team, because this team is so good at healing that if you get a cube and you put it up here, now this only applies to if you're going to be playing at level 6, and you can't play level 6 in silver. But once he has scavenge and heal, and you put him on the earth team with healers behind him, he can be very hard to kill. So the cube is a very interesting card for this team, but only if you get the heal and you're getting at least up to those upper levels. In other cards that, let's see, what are some other neutrals that are good to play with them? Alma isn't bad because he can be a tank in the front row that's hard to hit that you can always heal, and that's something that's kind of fun to do. Is there anybody else that's really good for them out of the neutrals? Eventually, I'm going to talk about all the neutrals and their use cases, but I'm trying to highlight anybody that's really good to fill a need. No. I don't think there is for this team. There's not really another neutral that is really, really important to help them out because they're a really good team overall. Nectar Queen is an interesting card that you'll want to pick up, mostly for 99 mana matches where a lot of melee monsters are going to have, just because it's a relatively cheap card. It flies, it does a lot of damage, so it's not a bad card to have. Some other cards, Goblin Thief is not terrible if you combine him with the Screeching Vulture. The Screeching Vulture is a great card, but not until you get his attack past 1. If you don't get his attack past 1, he's not that good, and that doesn't happen until level 4. He gets a lot better in the upper game with Scavenge, but it's not so needed before then. So if you get him to 4, he's pretty good. If you've got the money, go ahead, put him at 5, because that extra speed is kind of a good thing for an opportunity monster. Now, you wouldn't think that an opportunity monster and a sneak monster necessarily combine, but because those cards, the Goblin Thief will weaken the last monster, then the opportunity Screeching Vulture will go and peck it off if it almost finishes it off. Screeching Vulture also can combo with snipers because he can go pick off anybody they don't quite finish off. They do have one other sneak attacker, the Goblin Sorcerer, which is an interesting thing to have. Sneak magic can win you games, and it can also lose you games. And I'm going to show you kind of an advantage in a moment here of how games kind of go, where if you don't target the right thing, you're going to lose. So now that we've gone over some of the cards out here, Brownie is awesome, but he's super expensive. And he doesn't become super awesome until late game when he gets Inspire. So he does Speed and Inspire. If you're going to get him before that, you only need a level 1. So you can rent one really cheap. And just if you have 1 mana left, he can speed your team up. That's not a bad thing to do with your last mana. Either play a Creeping Ooze or a Brownie. And if you have 2 mana left and there isn't a 2 mana monster that makes a lot of sense to play, then you can play both of them for a 2 speed switch up, which can be very important. Speed is one of the most important things in the game at times, but at other times it's not. It kind of depends on how strong you are. So let's go ahead and get into the battles, and I'll start off here with the first one that I won, and we'll talk about the setup and what they tried to do to me and then why it didn't work. They also played green, so now you can see an advantage of a Lama play, but it didn't end up working against me, and you'll see why it didn't. So first I'm going to queue this up. I'm going to pause it. You're going to see me get my extra HP. You can never pause it before it does that first one. And then in a second, he'll get his extra HP for his monsters. But this was a poison match with heavy hitters. So if you got a stun on somebody, you could do extra damage. Now, the one thing about the Earth team, they only have one mage that is pretty good at stunning. And other than dealing a stun, he does nothing else. So they're not a team with like a lot of really, really good cards for stunning, but they do have one. But because of poison, basically what I did here was I went with a chicken in the front row to take a first hit. This is a good position for a chicken if you have one. Another good position for a chicken is in the last position for blocking a sneak attacker. Or they could be here as target for a sniper if you have a level 1 chicken, because it has 0 attack, so it will be attacked by a sniper. I put it here because with poison, I want to make sure it dies in the first round, because otherwise the poison will kill it. And it's really just meant to take a hit for me so that, just take a hit and die. No big deal. Now, he went in poison Lama. If he just would have been able to play cube, he probably could have beat me, but he didn't. He only had 5 mana left. So he decided to try this Tortoise Chief. So you're going to see this get last standed up, and it has a heal on it. So I have to be able to outdamage his heal, and it's a very, very close game. I'll speed it up at least to double speed. So you'll see here, I hurt his chicken, then his chicken kills my chicken. That's kind of what I was expected. His chicken gets a heal. Now I get a reflect on the magic damage. I finish off his chicken. So now he goes into last stand. So now you can see the poison is still on him for just this round. Now it's going to get removed, and he's going to be self-healing with 5. And then now you saw my princess do the heals to both people, which is protecting my team from having that tank die there, which made it so that I'm just barely going to eke out this win. One more miss by my team, and I would have lost this match because I wouldn't have been able to out damage him without the damage reflect. So that was a really, really close one. Now, that was a game I very easily could have lost, but ended up winning. Now I'm going to show you one against somebody who, as you can see, he's bought the skin packs. He has completely maxed out cards, but for whatever reason, he played a poor team, and I'm going to explain to you why he played a poor team in just a second here. So you can see an example of somebody who has maxed out cards losing to somebody who played a card that was not maxed out, 2 of them, and still beat him in this game. Here's the stunner I was talking about on the green team. I didn't really talk to him about him a lot because, as you can see, even maxed out, which would be expensive to do, he only does 2 attack. But this is why this combo that you see is why green is one of the better Little League teams now, and white used to win it with this lineup here or something close to this. But I'll show you why I don't like his lineup, because he has a monster here that can't attack. He's got an attacker here going front row, a mage here going front row, an attacker here going front row, and an attacker here going front row. But then he has 1 sniper, and that 1 sniper is going to be trying to kill this monster. Now, he could have played a different card that attacked this front row position, and I think he would have been better off, because what happened was he has 1, 2, 3, 4 monsters attacking the front row and 2 monsters not. And you're going to see, because of that, my failed summoner is going to live longer than maybe you would expect him to live with all this firepower coming at him. And I've got all my monsters hitting here, hit here, hit here, hit here, and he will follow up and hit here once they weaken him. But early on, he will go try to hunt the lowest HP monster. And that's not bad, because if I kill this one off, they'll lose the protect to the other monsters. So let's go ahead and get the battle going. We'll speed it up, and then we'll talk about what happens here. So you see, as the debuffs go here, you know, he weakens my magic attack. Things are not looking that good for me, but I had my armor boost from there. So he had to get through my armor. I got an early stun going on right there. But after the first round, it's kind of looking, you know, not that good maybe. He's got me down pretty low. He's almost killed my guy, but he's stunned, so he can't attack. And bam, I removed their armor. So that was a big one for me. So now that protect is gone. Now, also, as you can see, my mage, that stun that I have barely kept my guy alive. So now my failed summoner doesn't go down until this turn. Now, one of the things that's really, really key for me here, as you'll see in a moment, is that I do have right there, my magic attackers finally get bigger. So now I deal some very big magic attacks on this one. And then I have my front row guy die that does a redemption, which finishes off that unicorn. And that was a big thing for me. So this was actually a match that could have been much more competitive. As you saw, it was really, really close. And then here at the end, I just totally pull away. And it's because his archers can't attack from the front row anymore. And the fact that he just decided to have that sniper kind of just all by himself pegging that sniper position, and I played a monster with a shield and high HP there, he wasn't able to sniper anyone good, and that caused him to lose. And we'll end this one with just one more video replay. And this is my guildmate, so it's kind of funny to feature her. But we did a matchup, and I just wanted to show you the power of Kron. So this was an Earthquake game, and I did mention that you could do this with Lama at lower levels and give Kron the last stand. But you're going to see here, this was 18 mana, Earthquake. I just wanted to try to use them. Life doesn't really have a lot of good flyers, so I used him again. so that I'd have that redemption that could deal 1 damage off to the other team. I used Kron the Undying, and I'm just hoping basically that when he goes into Last Stand mode, he's going to be able to outlast the other team and kill them all before he dies. So we'll get this going. Now, one of the things that made me think I might lose this game was the silence from the Ruler of the Sea. But luckily, Ruler of the Sea doesn't fly either, so he's going to have to deal with Earthquake taking him out. So he did have a good play there because he had the armor there, but then I have the redemption come into play. The redemption was actually more helpful than people might think in this matchup because it lowered the Ruler of the Sea down from 5 HP to 4, which meant that he was going to die 1 turn earlier from Earthquake. He wouldn't have died this turn, but he would have died the next turn, and so he would have got to hit me 1 more time for 5, which might have done, it wouldn't have been enough, but it would have made it closer. But now you'll see Kron's just sitting there, just healing himself for 6, dealing 6 magic damage, and he'll take down the win. And that's one of the crazy things on this team when you get them to higher levels. Kron is a beast when you get Last Stand going for him. All right, guys, so let me know how you like this format. I talked about things a little bit more. It's a little bit longer, so I really want to end it and just say goodbye and have a good one.